Welcome to News and Reviews. I'm Jordan, and I'll be your teacher for today. Today I'm gonna give you a history lesson on Apple. Now, Apple is a company that you may know from the iPhones, iPads, iMacs, all sorts of products they have. But they didn't have their start the way you would recall. So basically, I'll take you all the way back to the beginning. So, back in 1936, there was a man named Steve Wozniak and a man named Steve Jobs. They were homosexual lovers. So, they would chill out in their bedrooms, smooching in bed, cuddling up, maybe do other things. I don't want to make it too graphic. We gotta keep it family friendly. So they had this relationship, and they thought, maybe we should get married. So, of course, gay marriage wasn't, legalized at the time. But they figured maybe they could do something together to, kind of bind them together. So what they did was they created a company. It was a computer company. And what they did was they created the first iMac. Now, back in 1940 is when the first iMac came into being, and you could do all sorts of basic computing on it, play games, do all the word processing, everything you need to do on a computer, and it was really useful. So Steve Wozniak and Jobs, basically, they decided to take the Jobs last name. So it was Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs. And together they created the Apple Corporation. Because two things they really enjoyed: apps and assholes. So they decided to name it after their two favorite things, apps and assholes. So it was the Apple. And so basically, what they designed the logo around was basically, since they were two gay lovers, they couldn't have a child. So there was like a piece missing. So it's like the bite out of the apple was their child. So basically, with Apple, the next thing they decided to work on, they decided to improve the iMac a little bit, work it ahead, but they had bigger plans. Now, in 1965, Steve Wozniak was shot in the head by a sniper bullet while he was riding in his limousine down, Rodeo Avenue in New York. And he was a life taken too soon. But Steve Jobs decided to honor Steve Jobs, after their marriage. He decided to honor his memory by creating the Wozniak phone, which was later renamed the iPhone. Now, the iPhone was a very innovative product. Now, it was kind of like the Nokia at first. So it was just like a flip phone. You got the buttons there. You talk on it. It would hold a 20-minute charge, which was, 1960s. It was an insane amount of battery life. So you could sit on that phone and maybe talk for a little while and have a fun time. Talk to your friends, or maybe if you're you haven't talked to your family for a while, call them up. But Steve wasn't going to stop there. He wasn't going to stop there. We all knew Steve Jobs had big plans. So in 1980, basically what Apple did was they expanded and created a program called iTunes. And you probably used iTunes. It's basically a program where you can get any music you can imagine. You can get music videos, you can get TV shows, you can get pornos, you can get basically anything you can imagine. And it's all on iTunes. And basically, You know, Steve Jobs, he watched, what's that movie called? Debbie Does Dallas. And he was like, I really enjoy this. It's a good-ass porno, but I don't want to have to sit on my desktop computer to watch it. So, what can I do? And then he thought of what we now know as the iMac. So, it's a laptop that you can, you know, play games, watch porn, just do whatever you want. And it's a good ass thing. And Steve Jobs thought it up. He was the first one to create a laptop. It's what we call the iMac. So after that, Steve Jobs, he wanted to take a break from creating like computers and stuff. He wanted to try his hand at something new. Okay, sorry about that jump. Anyways, what I was talking about, Steve Jobs, he got bored of making computers, so what he did was he created a website. Now this was his first venture into making like interactive websites. And what he created was a website called Pornhub. It's where you could watch all your favorite videos and everything. And you know, it wouldn't be as troublesome as having to go through programs like Kazaa or Napster. So you could just go on Pornhub and watch any video you could think of. And you know, Steve Jobs thought it was really convenient. You know, since his lover Wozniak died, he really needed something like that. And it was a really useful tool for him, you know. Get that batter all over his keyboard. And after, you know, his keyboard got pretty gunked up from all his jizz, so he decided to make a new product called Q-tips. And what he did with the Q-tips was he used it to clean out his keyboard whenever it got too junked up. And you know, it was a good product. It was really useful, and it was a completely useful invention. People found other ways of using it too, besides just cleaning up jizz off a keyboard. You know, you could clean out your ears with it. You know, it was an innovative product. You know, Steve Jobs is the king of innovation. And now let's get up to 2000s. And when Steve Jobs created the iPhone. So early 2000s, Steve was having some problems. You know, he was going to family get-togethers, and he wasn't able to watch porn on his iMac. So basically what he did was he created a smaller version that he could use the internet with, and basically just watch any porno he wanted anytime he wanted. And he called it the new iPhone, which was later shortened to the iPhone. You know, it wasn't like the old flip phone version. It was just basically any version. And you know, he could just go on Pornhub. And his friend Bill Gates at Microsoft also invented a few websites as well. You know, he could go on his websites too, like Xvideo and stuff like that like Bill Gates created. And he could watch any video he wanted. And he could even watch like really kinky shit too. Because with his iPhone, nobody could see his history besides him unless they took his phone. So, you know, Steve Jobs was pretty good. And now we get to the dark part. So, recently, a couple years ago, Steve Jobs, he died. And basically what Steve Jobs was doing, he did a fuck ton of drugs. He was doing heroin and cocaine. But that's not what did him in. What did him in was autoerotic asphyxiation. So basically what Steve Jobs was doing was he would tie a noose around his neck and jerk himself off to she-male porn every night. and it's hard to talk about. He was such an innovator. And basically, one night he just pulled the belt too tight around his neck, and he just couldn't breathe anymore. He was watching a gangbang porn. 12 midgets fuck one hot bitch. Unfortunately, Steve Jobs, he just tied it too tight. And when he, basically after he jizzed, he fell asleep, like a lot of us have done in the past. I mean, don't lie, you've done it too. And he had it too tight around his neck, he couldn't breathe anymore, and he just died. And that's the history of Apple and Steve Jobs. Thank you for joining us tonight. This has been a News and Reviews production with Jordan. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And leave a comment. I hope you learned something tonight. I'm sure a lot of us probably did learn something. It's the history as it actually happened, not as they tell you it happened. Anyways, I hope you all have a good night, and I'll see you on the next video. Adios.